Hi, everybody.
Tapoyawalti. Can you hear me, brother?
Can you hear me, brother?
Of course.
Great.
How'd you like the pictures that I posted in the WhatsApp for the place where we find balance?
Oh, that looked beautiful. I have a lot of mountains here around Denver on the west side, so I don't get to see the sunset as nicely as I want to. I have to basically go to a really high point to do it, which is really cool when I get to do it. But the sunrise is amazing here in Colorado for me.
Just giving it some time. We'll give it like a few more minutes and then we can get started. I don't know how many other people are going to join up. But we have TechPod. Really, really quiet.
Oh, sorry. I'm just letting people join.
No. Is that better? Hey, Pilar, how's it going?
Hi, Nilsin Pilar. Hi, everyone. Cyrus, you were able to make it. Happy to see you here. I'm brand new to using this all these different features that you have here, Nemo.
About.
Say that again.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying it's just going to take familiarity and practice. A lot of our siblings, I think, feel the same way about using a new application, but we'll get there. Just take some patience and some practice.
So everybody should have access to the chat. Everybody should have access to the notes. So the main menu bar should be at the top right. You'll start off at the right side and move left. So the red button is obviously if you want to end the meeting or leave the meeting, you'll click that. Right to the left of that, immediately to the left of that, you'll see the share button. The share button allows you to share your screen. And in that sharing, once you click that, you'll get an option to select exactly what you're trying to share. So if you have a window already popped up, you can share that window. When you do, and if you have audio, you have to make sure that the also share tap audio button is selected. Then you have your microphone. The caret buttons on the right side of each the microphone and the camera allow you to select your, so for example, if you need to change your microphone to something else, or if you need to change your speakers to something else, then you can select that through the settings, right? On the camera, you'll see more video and settings. Right now, you can see that I have an effect to have like a green screen background.
Can y'all hear us well? I know some of you guys are saying there's a weird feedback.
There's a little bit of a weird sound coming off of your mics.
So I know if I cancel the noise suppression, does that make it better? Or is it still weird?
It's about the same, but you're fine, though. It's not a major issue.
So if you click on the meeting notes button, you should see the agenda. You'll be able to add meeting notes. And then if we have any tasks, it'll be at the very bottom of all of that. So that's where you see all of that. And then for those who have cameras, you could turn them on. We can get into this mode right here, where everybody gets put together. Gonna make a modification to our camera. There you go. And then you'll see us right over here. Get in there.
Nice,
Get in
sorry.
there.
Gotta get my seat. Gotta get my seat.
I mean, there's things that we can do to make this fun, but in the meantime, hey, here.
Yeah, put it back.
I just ruined it.
Hey.
All right, get screenshots, everybody. Screenshots. Look at the cameras and screenshot. Hey.
So maybe we should start covering what we're going to be discussing as we're waiting for
I don't know if you
people
want
to
to
join
share
in.
your PowerPoint, Pilar. Go ahead and we'll give you leadership on that part. And then I'm going to mute and hand over the mic to the meeting Atlanta.
So while we're hopefully waiting for a few people that might be running a little bit late, let's have a discussion about what it is that we're going to be covering. So what are we going to be covering with these classes? We're going to attempt to translate a lot of information that is basically being passed down to us through elders of the tradition and knowledge. This information is being passed down to us through our Temachtilistli. He is a person that lives in the mountains of Guerrero, Mexico. These are basically, this is knowledge that has been preserved in his community and other communities in the area. His first language is Nahuatl. So he had to learn Spanish as a second language. The story behind that is actually really cool. But essentially what he has been doing is he's been teaching, at least myself, for about a year now, everything related to the Tonal, the 20 different symbols, the calendar, the ancestors used to keep, the spiritual knowledge. There's also a lot of knowledge related to plants and a lot of different exercises that, when applied, help a person basically in multiple different ways. This is information that comes from what is called a kalpuli, which is essentially a group of people that are gathering and discussing information. Is the old form of a schooling system that used to be native to these lands. And is still practiced to this day. There's a lot of kalpulis throughout Mexico, also in the US. And the intention of this class is basically to translate all of that information as much as we can into English and be able to hopefully pass this information over to the people that have roots in Mexico. They want to know more about their history, the real history. and also in the process get to know themselves, which I think is an amazing thing. I think uh, the information is so vast that it's going to be covering multiple different things in life, and if applied on a daily life, it makes a huge difference on the quality of life that an individual has. Noinitsin Pilar, anything you would like to add?
Um, I did make a PowerPoint, but I didn't have access to the agenda that was created, so it might not go congruente. Pero I will share that whenever you guys are ready so that it can be in the screen.
Go ahead. Oh, hi to the little one. Go ahead and share it whenever you like, Noinitsin Pilar.
Okay, I'll share it right now. Let's see. Share content, screen, PowerPoint. Happy. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead and start with the first tonal. Well, let me give a brief explanation of what the Tonalpohualli is. Tonalpohualli is basically the way that the calendar used to be followed by the elders. Uh, is basically a calendar that we're gonna go into, and we're gonna try to learn it. We're gonna go into each individual tonal or image in it. There's 20 of them. 20 is basically an important number because that's the number that was used to keep track of math, if you will. It was called a Sempowali. Sempowali was one count, which basically translated to 20. As far as the first tonal, that's essentially what we're going to be discussing today. And that is basically Zipaktli. Okay, we can see it on the bottom right side of the calendar. The Noinitsin Pilar put together for us there. This calendar, as she mentioned when she shared it, is essentially following a pattern, right? You guys will notice that the first tonal is Zipaktli, which is the crocodile, and the last one is a flower, Xochitl, right? There's a reason behind that. It basically shows the beginning of life, which is what one of the things that Zipaktli represents. And it also represents the flourishment or the flourishing of the person following this. So essentially, there's a lot of different exercises within all of these different tonals. Within each one, there's a lot of different philosophical teachings and learning that we have to continue to do and do. As far as this specific class, we're going to be covering Zipaktli. Next week, hopefully, we can go ahead and put together a class for Coat, which is the next symbol over there. I'm sorry, Yehekat, which is wind. So, yeah, that's basically how we plan on working this particular class. So what does Zipaktli represent? Brother Nemo, you guys want to chime in and give us a little bit of what you think Zipaktli is and represents?
Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Yeah. So just so we're aware and all on the same page, we're actually dividing this Zipaktli class into two sessions. Just because there is a multitude of information and lessons and exercises that go along with it. So just so everybody's on the same page. But yeah, Zipaktli, it's translated as the crocodile, right, or dragon in some instances. It has to do with, well, in my opinion, or from what I've been learning, right, it teaches us about being calm in nature, right, learning how to silence and quiet our ego so that we can work hand in hand with it and essentially be better at acting upon our actions, right, in a more calm state of being. And so, what else have I written down? But yeah, it's a crocodile, right? And like the crocodile, it lives in two worlds, that being water and land, right? It can exist in both forms of nature. And that relates to human beings as well, right? Where we as humans, we live in a physical realm, which is right now we're talking to each other, right? In the physical plane of existence. But then we also have the spiritual and kind of subconscious realm that we visit usually when we go to dreams, right? When we're in Miklampa, or when we are meditating and doing those exercises that further our connection spiritually. So that's just a little bit about, for me, what the crocodile represents.
And I guess it's my turn, right? So, as Tekpat was illustrating, Zipaktli is the calm, patient, very similar to that of Mother Earth, right? We understand the crocodile to sit in water and just wait for the right moment before it can make a move or hunt. We see how patient it is while it sits in the water. It allows us an opportunity to observe and understand what exactly that means. It doesn't mean that the crocodile is running around, you know, doing all sorts of crazy movements just to get its prey. On the contrary, it's sitting and waiting. It's being patient. Its time and moment will come when it comes. So it's exactly what it's trying to teach us. And the entities or the sacred energies that are tied to Zipaktli are Tonakasiwat and Tonakatakutli, right? But we'll get into that in a different course. Right now, you just need to understand that the crocodile is essentially that teaching of being patient and staying calm. Atlan?
Sister Pilar, would you like to share some?
Yeah, I think that this would be a good time to share what it says here. I translated this from a document that was shared to me in the class. So it says Zipaktli, the crocodile, or sometimes it's known as the dragon. So traditionally, it is identified with the crocodile, although some authors believe that it is a dragon. The etymology of the word Zipaktli is linked to Se Patli, translated as one medicine or first medicine. It is the first moment of consciousness, as water represents the spiritual plane and the unmanifested, and earth represents the physical world and manifestation. Thus, the crocodile is the being that emerges from the water to live on the land, indicating the beginning of a human spiritual journey, where there is contact with the subtle and ethereal in addition to the gross and earthly. Man is where both things, spirit and matter, heaven and earth, come together. Zipaktli is also the island that floats on the primordial waters, the place of origin where everything is revealed as new. In its meaning of dragon, it represents complete potentiality. This sign synthesizes the earthly and the celestial body. It has even been said that it contains all the signs in itself. It is the undivided unit that contains it all. The crocodile can submerge itself in water and go unnoticed. So the natives of the sign tend to be discreet, but they know how to emerge when necessary. They are people of firm principles, entrepreneurs, and tenacious, with responsibility in life. Curious and thoughtful people with a natural tendency towards spirituality and mystique, which they can develop without difficulty. Their less positive qualities make them easy to influence and nervous people. In Mayan tradition, Imix or Imox, the Mayan name for Zipaktli, is associated with the womb, the maternal breast, and nutrition. Therefore, reference is made to the ability to sustain and maintain, which would have a lot to do with the regent of the Nawa version, Tonacatecutli, Lord of our sustenance, indicating that you should trust in the natural gifts. We must trust in the spiritual father mother so that abundance will come. So, I'm sorry if you guys hear the baby crying. Um, so, basically, what I get from this, from my understanding of what Zipaktli is uh, it's like that first step into consciousness of like from being a human. We are both material and immaterial. We are our avatar, our body, but we're also, spirit, our brain, the part of us that feels things, the part of us that has feelings and thoughts because they're not physical. And so the crocodile is the first step. It's the connection between both things. Then that's why it's the first sign in the calendar. There's another thing that I translated from a different document that talks about Zipaktli, and this one says the crocodile represents the beginning, the origin, the root. It represents the earth, and it has very ancient information. It is the first of the signs which indicates that the person has been chosen to initiate projects, ideas, paths, opening the way for others who may come after, younger people or even those who are ahead that are older. When we physically observe the crocodile, we see protrusions over his spine, which allude to the hills and mountains that have had a life of millions of years. This gives the person the knowledge that is kept in them. They have the ability to give answers without thinking about it. It is given, it is shared. The person must recognize to accept that this information is theirs, that Mother Earth has provided it to them to be able to give their word at the necessary moments. Which brings us to the big mouth crocodiles, which they use to trap their prey to tear. To the person, it gives the ability to communicate, looking for harmony in the way of doing it. With subtlety, not with pain, being the first sign gives the person the ability to know how to open their own paths and that of other people. They become a guide and an innovator. So a lot of this description is referencing people that are born in the sign, but we carry all of the signs with us. So it's still something that we can all embody, in our journey. I'm done talking. Thank you.
This last image that you pulled up just now, it's amazing in reflecting, the human concept with the 20 different energies. If you guys look at it, you guys will basically find all 20 different tonales in this image. It holds a lot of information. We will go through it. That image alone requires a few classes, I believe. But if we look at Zipaktli, one of the things that we notice is that it's missing the lower jaw. And the reason why it's missing the lower jaw is because of that duality that it represents. It's basically representing the underworld, and the uh, uh, life, right? So it represents that duality. It also, when you look at it, it does have a lot of different uh, symbols depending on which one you're looking at. They represent multiple different, really meaningful objects within the culture as well. One of the things the sister Pilar just also spoke about was how this also has a name in the Mayan calendar, in the Maya calendar. And that goes to show essentially how uh, both cultures or nations or empires, however you want to look at them, essentially we're governed by this cosmological view of energies, and how these were concepts that were studied over centuries, if not millennia. When it comes to the information that we're going to go into, is information that can be found in multiple different areas of what is Mexico, and in some cases even in the US. So this is knowledge that goes back extremely far back when it comes to history. This easily predates the Aztec Empire, or what we know as the Aztec Empire, the Toltecs, and a few other older civilizations before them. So it is basically quite important to understand that this is not just a concept that was studied by a particular culture, I think. When it comes to Zipaktli, one of the things that it does is it teaches us a lot of different uh, uh, ways to live. One of those is what is called the Ashkan Wanikan, okay? And that's basically trying to live in the here and now. So essentially, a crocodile is always gonna be keeping its composure. It's gonna be camouflage most of the time, but he always basically has a goal, which is essentially to eat, right? So the teaching behind it is that we gotta be able to just live in the moment, be ready to strike anytime, but essentially staying within the moment, not living in the past because the prey already left, but living the moment because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So that's one of the teachings that it goes into. I think that is an extremely profound concept, even though it sounds so simple. But living in the here and now translates to essentially being aware all the time of who you are, by making sure that you're using your brain essentially to stay in the present and study yourself and your surroundings within the present. So that is one of the exercises that I believe that is really important that we can learn from Zipaktli. Um Sister Techpat, anything that you like to add to that?
So something that came to mind when everybody was giving their great viewpoints right on Zipaktli and encompassing the energy, which is Zipaktli. So the crocodile, another important feature about it, right? And I think sibling Atlani, you mentioned it just now, right? Is learning your environment, right? Learning your surroundings. And in order to do so, you have to, which we'll get into this, right? But you have to learn how to assess and observe your environment. You need to learn it and study it so that you are present, but you are also aware and prepared, right, for things that may come your way. And I think something that the crocodile teaches us is adaptability, right? Learning how to not just stay static, right? They camouflage to protect themselves from environments and certain threatening situations, but they also study their environment, right? They learn how to discipline themselves to act to the situation that presents itself. And so that was something that came to mind about to further elaborate on the crocodile and some of its qualities.
Nancy, Nemo, anything you'd like to add?
I mean, this is the whole reason why we are discussing Shiyeklachia, Amo, Shinawati, Iwan, Shimuyekmachti. What does that mean? That translates to literally observe, remain in silence, and learn. Literally, that's what it means, right? So that's exactly what a crocodile does. It sits in water with its head barely sticking out, right? And that's why you see one part of the jaw. The other part of the jaw, the other half, the bottom half, you don't see because that plane of existence is broken with the water, right? The water, the top part of the water is where we live now, and the bottom of the part of that water is supposed to represent Mictlapa. So that's essentially what this image is showing us, right? How the crocodile's top half is visible to us and the other part is not, but we know and understand that it exists. We know and understand that it's part of that crocodile, just the same way that the spirit world is part of us, right? So we must take into consideration those aspects because we were raised to believe that that's not part of the natural world, right? But as the disclaimer in the meeting says, when you come to these meetings or to these classes, you must come with an open mind. It's very similar to how Dr. Strange was told by, his mentor, is that you don't know anything. And that's exactly what we gotta come into these sessions, because there are things that we're going to start talking about that just don't sit within that Eurocentric construct, right? And so, I don't know, did you want to start with the first exercise? Because I know that it's part of this whole um, teaching and information.
So let's dive a little bit more into the Ashkan Wanikan, if you guys don't mind. That way we can go ahead and hopefully cover a little more that particular exercise, and then we can go ahead and maybe open up the floor for a few questions that anyone might have. So on the Ashkan Wanikan, the reason why I want to cover that a little longer is because that is in itself an exercise. It's an exercise that helps the person basically stay in the moment and take control of their own life, basically reclaim some of that freedom that we've lost. So being able to essentially just being aware of your surroundings, living in the moment, looking at a plant, uh, meditating in the moment is something that can be extremely helpful to an individual, um, especially in learning a lot of the different exercises that we're going to start going into. You got to be present. You got to be living the moment all the time to be able to achieve some of the exercises that we're going to be working on. Um, Noinitsi Nemo is 100% right. A lot of this information that we're going to be discussing touches on a lot of topics. They might be considered by some crazy, by some, evil, by some stupid. So it can be labeled multiple different ways. But at the end of the day, this is real knowledge. It's knowledge that is coming from the roots of our ancestors. So the one thing that I do want to also point out, as Noinitsin Nemo mentioned, is to just simply keep an open mind and ask any questions you feel like asking. That's what we're here for. And if we don't know the answer, we will get the answer for you. We have a whole calpuli of elders behind us that approved for this entire project that we're doing. So keep in mind, this is new. We're going to be learning a lot of information, and hopefully we're also going to be learning from each other, because a lot of knowledge that you guys have, I'm pretty sure can help the rest of us as well. So yeah, no need in Pilar, anything you like to add to the Ashkanwanikan concept?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I struggled with for um at least 3 months when I started the classes. It was still really hard for me, just speaking from personal experience, that I I had this habit of ruminating on things and thinking about all the possibilities. And I don't know, I picked it up when I was a kid, where it was just like, oh well, if I think of the worst thing that can happen, it's not going to happen. And so I would think, what's the worst that could happen, you know? And it's not good for you to be so disconnected from the reality, you know, the real moment that you are in right now. And it's not good for your mental health at all. So learning the Ashtanga has really helped me to ground myself and to better process things as they happen, because I remind myself that, like, no matter what, you know, everything is gonna work out the way it has to work out. And nothing is good or bad. Nothing is positive or negative. It's just how we react to the situation that's happening. And so the only way we can truly embody the Ashkan Wanikan is to um, be checked in consciously and be present as possible. A lot of, I mean, personally, I didn't like being present. I didn't like being connected. I wanted to feel disconnected. I wanted to feel like I have hypersensitivity to stuff that happens around me, to noises, to feelings, to textures, and it drives you insane if you like think about it negatively. But being present is important in the grounding process. So the Ashkan Wanikan has helped, just in my personal experience, to better process things as they happen and not go down that doom like hole that I would go into when something didn't go the way that I had previously planned it to go. So yeah, I think that's
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing, Noinitsin. Noinitsin Tekpak, anything you'd like to add to the Ashkanwanikan?
I think it's an exercise that requires a lot of patience with yourself. Um, like our sister Balad has said, right? It does take time. It does take time to learn and teach yourself how to be present, because that's not something that is commonly practiced or even taught in our society, right? The society we live in needs people to be absent, needs people to be distracted, and they do that very intelligently, right? With media, with applications, with stress of just trying to exist in this world, right? So um, when we first got introduced into the Ashkan Manikan, right, concept of living in the moment, right, being present here in the now, it was something very impactful, but it did require a lot of application, right, putting the time in and the work in. And it goes actually hand in hand with the first exercise of the crocodile, of Zipaktli, of observing, being silent, no judgment, and learning, right? You have to learn how to silence your mind. The mind, if you let it run wild, it can do some damage, right? And I think a lot of us have experienced the consequences of the mind having control over us versus us controlling it. And these, like I said, these are lessons and teachings that go with the Zipaktli exercises and concepts, right, and topics. But I do think it's a very, I mean, all the exercises are important, but it is important to learn how to silence our minds, sit with ourselves, and not fear being here in the present, right? Not fear getting to know ourselves, getting to unravel our good and bad qualities. Because we have to acknowledge the fact that we're not perfect, right? We have undesirable traits and qualities, but it's not a permanent situation, right? We can always work on, to our best ability, improving some of it. But yeah, for me, it was just a very important lesson to be present and to take back the control, which is something that we can all do, right? Your mind doesn't control you. So you just have to grasp it. You have to learn to harmonize with it and not fear essentially part of who you are, right? The part that has gone a little bit crazy and wild and has had the reins for so long, right? So you need to take back the control that you most certainly have the ability to do so. So that's just my experience with the Ashkan Wanikan.
And I wanted to add, thank you, Pilar. Thank you, Atlani. Thank you, Tekpat. Very insightful and important information. We all should have access to the notes now, so if you can start adding like little notes that you want to remember, because this is not just going to be for us, it's going to be used as a template to be shared with other people so that they can also have access to those little notes, right? We're not trying to give the whole lecture in the meeting notes, but we just want to give some input as to the information that should be shared. And so with that same energy, I want to say that Ashkan Wanikan is very useful when it comes to one wanting to accept themselves for who they are, for what they do, how they exist, right? For them to fall in love with themselves. You look in the mirror, you look at your body, you no longer feel disgust with what's in front of you, but you are in love with it. You love the curves if they're there. You love the stretch marks if they're there. You love scars if they're there. If there's something that you do not like about yourself, you fall in love with it, right? Self-reflection, self-awareness, existing as you are here now. And so it's important for us to get into that perspective, right? To start learning who we are, where we are essentially trying to get to, and how it is that I can convince my ego to work with me for that goal. And what I mean by convince, I'm not talking about I'm gonna meet my ego halfway. No, on the contrary, you're gonna convince your ego to do as you say. Why? Because that's exactly what and how it should be. You should be in control of the emotions. You should be in control of the thoughts. You should be in full control. And that's what Ashkan Wanika helps us understand is learning how to harmonize by keeping the selves in harmony, in balance, right? With the term that is used to describe the ego is el otro yo, the other you. Okay, the other you, it'll be reference to that from this point forward. The other you is essentially your dual nature. We exist as a duality, as two. And if you think that you've always been yourself, when you hear a voice in your head, when you talk to yourself, when you can have a conversation with yourself in your head, you are literally talking to you and the other you. Okay, so there's more that's going to be discussed that talk about that, but Ashkan Wanikan, the here and now, living in the here and now, means just that. Why are you worried about the things about tomorrow when you know they're going to get resolved? Just focus on what's in front of you right now. Let the rest go, essentially.
Thank you so much, everybody. I think all of that is essentially what it is. It allows for you to empower yourself by taking control of being able to have the control over decisions that you make by paying attention uh, to your moment, basically. Um, and I don't know if anyone has any questions that you guys that might have come up, or if you guys want to leave that for last. Anyone?
I just wanted to answer a couple of questions in the comment. Yes, I added your email, Obsidian Tongue. You should have access to the notes. And then for the one that says, how do you spell Ashkan Manika? Well, we've already shared that. And thank you so much, Pilar, for putting that on your notes. Really do appreciate that. And then, okay, I believe that was it. So do you have any questions?
No, we encourage participation. So if you want to go ahead and unmute your mic, you can speak on the platform if you feel more comfortable in the comments. But
let us know what does Ashkan Mika mean to you? And feel free to just unmute your mic and share with us.
And if not, we can always go back to it at the end if nobody has any questions right now. We're going to be covering a lot of knowledge that touches on this. So some stuff might trigger a question. We can always feel free to raise your hand. But let's go ahead and proceed. Let's go ahead and touch on observe, be quiet, and learn, if you guys don't mind. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the Ashkan Wanikan exercise. So essentially what that translates to is being able to just be still, be quiet, take a look at your surroundings, and learn from your surroundings by basically feeling your surroundings in multiple different ways. So essentially, the way that this exercise is done is by trying to locate a particular place where you feel comfortable. And essentially, you're picking a comfortable place. Sit down and try and start observing your surroundings. And by observing them, just be quiet and try to learn as much as you can from them. One of the things that Zipaktli does is that it's extremely patient, right? And you got to be patient with yourself. You're basically trying to teach yourself techniques on how to be able to silence your mind so that you can actually be able to control your mind and be able to have that conversation with yourself that you want to have rather than the conversation that your mind is telling you to have. So this also helps on controlling essentially your mind in a way that it's going to start allowing for you to have a clearer vision. And essentially, once you start observing everything in your surroundings with true silence, you will start to notice little things that you kind of forgot that were there. That will start triggering a lot of, I think, a lot of sensors in our mind that might be sleeping just because of the way that we're conditioned to live the day-to-day life in a lot of different ways. So this exercise is extremely important. The way that I do it myself is the way that the Temachtilli suggested it or taught it to us, which is by looking for a particular place where we feel comfortable and just spend some time in silence, looking at our surroundings and essentially trying to make that connection with ourselves by trying to achieve quieting the mind. Um, Anything you want to add to that, Nitsin Pilar?
Yes. So I have some notes that from Temachtilistli's classes about the specific phrase "Zipaktli." So "she" in Nahuatl is like a suggestion, and "ye" is like to say like well, like do something well, and "Tlachia" is to look. And then he says that "amo shinawati" is it's not necessarily just to silence, to like be quiet, is to silence of judgment specifically. And Iwan Shimoyek Machtia, we see the she again and the ye. So it's again, it's like a suggestion to learn well, to learn and absorb well. So the translation, like not the literal translation, but it says, look at everything beautifully, look at it well. And that includes objects, spaces, situations, moments, and problems. You want to observe them and observe them from a position of absent of judgment. And you want to learn from the things that surround you. And uh, another thing that I wanted to mention about it is that just how we can learn from our siblings that are the plants and the flowers and the animals that live in nature. We are also sacred energy. So just even interacting with people, um, I've done it where it's like I am talking to someone who is having a crisis and is possibly projecting, and I have had this before. It was like, oh, I need to defend myself, like they're trying to tell me who I am. And I started working with the Zipaktli Moshinawati one Shimoyek Machtia. And I learned to absorb, to observe. So this person was having a crisis, and I observed, that they were having a hard time. It wasn't about me, and I shouldn't judge, that they are projecting whatever they're projecting onto me. Like, I know my truth. And I learned that it's hard. It's hard to be a human. It's hard to survive in the life that we have been birthed into, colonization, fucking racism, classism, all of the problems. Everybody copes in whatever way possible, and this person is having a crisis because of drugs. And so, I can't judge them for using that to cope. I can't judge them for then, projecting onto me, all of these problems that they were experiencing in their personal crisis. And what I learned from that experience, and from many other experiences of observing without judgment, is that we all have, we all have our own truths, and we have to allow space. We have to allow space for everybody to have their experience, and we don't want to negatively affect anybody. We don't want to cause their experience to be any worse than it already is. And so we have to reserve judgment. We have to reserve any kinds of projections. I still struggle with that, but I am learning a lot following this. Zipaktli Moshinawati Iwan Shimoyek Machtia, to not judge myself. Not to observe my own experience, and observe it without judgment, and learn that I am still this developing person that is trying to make it work, and given the situation that I've been given, and that I'm the only one that can change what my experience is going to be like. I'm the only one that has control about everybody else around me. I have heard that in various other classes where they say, you know, if you're okay, if you're, you know, your universe is where you are, right? Like we are all our independent universes. And if I'm okay, if I persist in trying to be okay and trying to project positive love and acceptance to everybody else, then that's what I'm going to get back from the universe. You know, if I'm not going around hurting people, then nobody's going to go around hurting me. And if somebody does hurt me, it's okay. It's not because they did it on purpose. It's because they're struggling, and you have to accept, you know, that stuff happens. And yeah, I think that's all the notes that I had for this particular lesson. Thank you very much for allowing me to share.
Go ahead, Sister Tekpat, please, and ano needs in Nemo.
You go first? Or... Well said. I mean, very, very powerful words that have been shared, like has been expressed in our comments, right? Let's see. Sorry, you took me back a little bit of just taking in your words. So let me just concentrate for a moment. But yeah, so the reason we sit there in silence, yes, it is to obviously observe more deeply and to understand, right? But like Sister Pilar said, it's to not express any judgment. We have grown to accustomed to being very reactive and judging. So for instance, a lot of the times when we have conversations with people, sometimes people aren't actively listening, right? They're just taking in the information, but they're very impatient and they want to instantly provide their input or, you know, speak. But we've been taught through some of these teachings and lessons that you're not being a good listener if you're not sitting there, you know, taking in all the information and just listening, right? That is one of the best things that we can do at times. We must know when it's appropriate to provide input, to, you know, speak, and when we just need to sit back and observe and take in the information and be more helpful in that manner. So yeah, I mean, it was eloquently stated by our sister Pilar, like the phrase, right? It's very impactful and meaningful, right? Just with those words that have been expressed. Also, the reason we practice in silence is because not only are we taking in the information, being more active listeners and doing that work, but we're also teaching our ego, right? We are disciplining our ego because, kind of to go back to what we were talking about earlier, right? You have to eventually harmonize with the other you, right? The duality within you. And so when you're practicing silence, that's one of the techniques that you use to teach and discipline and regain control over your ego. So you're telling it, as much as right now I want to provide input or I'm getting flustered and perturbed by what somebody's saying, your ego is essentially trying to entice you, right? To react, to respond, just to express the emotion. But we must be more mindful. We must have more control, right? And we must know when it's okay to act out, right? In those emotions, and when we just need to take back, reflect, and process it without catering to the feelings or the emotional side, right? I've said it plenty of times. I think we let the emotional side run a wild, or without any restraint sometimes, right? We let our ego get a little bit too big in certain situations. And so when you're practicing silence, when you're taking in and observing really well, you're teaching your ego, no, I'm not going to allow you to take over right now. Right now, we must sit, we must observe our surroundings, we must learn, right? It's not for it's not for you to get upset with yourself. It's not meant to bring yourself down by judging, what you are or aren't doing in that situation, right? So that's one of the reasons that we practice in silence, is to essentially be in control and learn to discipline the ego, because it's supposed to be hand in hand, right? With both parts of you are supposed to be harmonized and be able to empower yourself to achieve these goals that you have set, right? And also, when we observe, we're not just looking at something, right? The word observe, when you translate it, it seems very simple, but what it really means is analyze, right? Look at your surroundings, whether that be plants, animals, nature around you, the elements, wind, fire, water. You're essentially looking at it, right? You're taking it in. You're reflecting and figuring out your environment, right? You're learning your environment. And so that's what observe means, is you're not just looking at something and saying, oh, look, that flower is pretty. You're dissecting the information and you're saying that flower, the roots, they're connected to earth, right? And just like that flower has life and has medicine at times, because some plants do have medicine, right? We too are, in a way, medicine. We can choose to spread horrible medicine and, contaminate the minds and lives of people, or we can be good medicine, right? And bring positive vibrations and things of that nature to our environment. But you're taking it all in and you're learning how you're further connected, how you are a piece within the whole, puzzle, and it's all interconnected. It's not like, nature's over there and we're over here and there's no, connections. Like, if anything, there's an abundance of networks that work together, right? There's a reason water flows in the rivers a certain way. There's reasons why. We actually saw a really nice video that our Temachtilistli shared the other day. He was in his sacred space, which is something very important for us to achieve. Is we have to find those places that call to us, that allow us to harmonize, to be in tune, right? Be connected. And so he was in a place where the river was flowing, and there were some rocks that he explains that the rocks were, at times rocks and obstacles are placed in front of you, right? So that eventually it impedes your progress. But we must be like water at times, not let those obstacles dictate, how far we go, because in this river, the water's still flowing past those rocks. Like, yes, it is impeding it to some degree, but the water's still flowing. And so one of the messages behind what he was saying was, we must be like that too. We mustn't limit ourselves and bound ourselves to such restricted capabilities. We actually are very adaptable. We can grow, but it requires work, right? It requires us directing and guiding ourselves to achieve those goals. So just a few things, to talk about when it comes to that phrase, the Zipaktli amo shinawati iwan shimoyekmachtia, which is to observe in silence without judgment and to learn.
So when we find these places, right? These places are meant to help us calm down, to help us balance ourselves, ground ourselves, whatever you want to call it. When you go to these places, most of the time you're focusing on letting go of the weight on your shoulders, right? The weight of the world on your back. But next time that you go to your place of comfort, literally stop thinking. Just look at the trees, how the wind moves on the trees. And that same wind also moves the grass on the ground, right? It's not about observing and judging a place just because there's empty bottled waters, there's trash on the floor. No, right? Literally sit there and observe. Why are those bottles there? Was it Mother Earth asking somebody to leave that material there because as it decomposes, it returns back nutrients to land? Why does the wind affect everything in its path? Right? It's because it's meant for everybody, not just me. Why does the sun shine on everything? Well, the plants need sunlight to survive and grow stronger and essentially make their food. Humans need sunlight. Don't believe me? Put yourself in an office for a year, go get your blood work done, and you're going to see you lack vitamin D. Truly observe, why do certain animals do certain things? Why do they have certain motions? Well, we understand that lizards and snakes have a split tongue, and when they stick out that tongue, what are they doing? They're analyzing the environment to set. And so that's exactly what we must do: analyze the environment, analyze ourselves, essentially, right? Because the way that you view that environment, the way that you view that existence is how you view yourself. And that's one thing that we need to take into account when it comes to just being quiet and observing. We're used to always wanting to say something. Like Tepat said, yes, we are a reactive society. We are not taught to use active listening skills. We are taught to listen just to reply. We are not taught to take into account another person's input. We are taught to hear an input and then correct it because it doesn't sound right to you and you want it to sound a specific manner. Right. And so even if you're sitting in front of your desk, just observe. Right. Observe the way your desk looks, the setup, certain things that are out of place because you may want to be organized, but it's not really organized. It just says that there's a lot in your mind that you need to organize. Or it could also mean that you may have a lot of stresses in your life, that you're worried too much about the things about tomorrow, that your existence in today, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even hold weight in the sense that you're not even present. You're focused on other things that are not even here yet. They're not tangible. They're not existent. Tomorrow's not a tangible thing, right? And you're worried about waking up all the people, right? All the people have to be woken up. Understood, but you're focused on something that's not tangible, something that's not here now. So it takes away from your growth. It takes away from your inner peace or your balance or your harmony, right? And so we must try to, I mean, it's very deep philosophically, right? When we talk about remain silent, right? Observe, be silent, and learn. There's a plethora of other things that can be said when we talk about these things, right? But essentially, it's how you are translating what observe, be silent, and learn. Brother Tlan.
Thank you so much for sharing No Needs in Nemo. So let's move on to a little bit more about Zipaktli that we want to discuss as far as another exercise. Uh, Another exercise the codes for Zipaktli is to basically be in touch with the elements. When Zipaktli is basically hanging out in a swamp area, it basically is in touch with all of the elements. It's in touch with the sun. It's in touch with water, usually, with the earth, usually, and wind. Uh, the one of the exercises that it teaches us is essentially to get in touch again with the elements, or basically we should be in touch all the time. But if we are not, basically start getting in touch with them. And the way that can be achieved is quite simple, just in the morning, if you look at the sun, first thing in the morning, is one of the exercises that the elders do all the time. Uh, the elders held the cosmological view uh, that believe that the sun is a sacred entity, if you want to call it a sacred energy. So it is basically revered, and doing the sun gazing in the morning was one of the exercises for fire. For earth is really simple. It's basically just walking barefoot or with Mother Earth and feeling it, and basically allowing for the energy to flow and help us clear any bad energy that we might have. Water, same thing. Water is held as a sacred element. Without it, we don't have life. Uh, it's basically something that we should cherish and see as a sacred thing in our lives. And I think that a lot of times we just take it for granted just because it's there all the time. But some of the exercises that my Temachtiani has taught me have to do with essentially depriving yourself from water to be able to realize the effect that it has, uh, on you, on your mind, on your body, when you don't have it, and you start noticing and appreciating it more and more for what it is, and how it should be considered by everyone. Wind, I mean, when people think about wind, they don't really think about much. Uh, Usually you're gonna put that together with a hurricane or something like that. But when you think more philosophically into what wind is basically what we did when we first became alive, right? The first thing that we did was inhale wind. It was that first breath, and it's basically that same last breath that we're gonna take. Without wind, we cannot survive. It's basically something that that is part of us. We are basically elements. We can find all these elements in us. We are the four elements. I used to tell my Temachtiani that I believe, based on everything that he taught me, I was like, okay, well, I'm the fifth element because I basically hold all of those four elements. He just laughed at me, thinking that I was a moron, I think. But essentially, getting in touch with the elements is something that we have to do. It's essential. It's something that our ancestors did all the time. Uh, Part of what we're going to be discussing, just to touch on brother Pancho there, we're going to be discussing everything related to the ancestors. We belong to a big network of teachers and elders. They can answer questions on many different issues. So the plan is to basically try and cover as much information as we can. Uh, uh, Unfortunately, a lot of these elders don't speak English, so our job is essentially to try and translate it as best as we can. And that's the reason why I think that this format that we have going on, where there's four of us sharing information about these particular topics, is beneficial because it helps us look at it from a few different points of views that we might have. But yeah, please let us know any questions that you may have later on. Noemí Sin Pilar, please go ahead.
Yeah, so when we talk about the exercises, I know y'all saw me typing up the ones for the elements. Um, I think that it's definitely a way for us to reconnect ourselves, because we are, well, at least me, like I was so disconnected, you know. I live in a small apartment. I barely have outside space. I don't have anywhere that's like a nature park that's near me. And so thinking about water as like the actual water that I drink from, the actual water that I bathe in, and thinking about its role in my daily life. I can't fast from it because I'm currently breastfeeding, but I think about it now consciously every time that I use water, and I use it, and I give thanks for its presence and its availability. You know, just thinking about how, you know, specifically people out there in the world that don't have access to clean water, that don't have access to water at all. You know, and so that's how I have been getting more connected with Zipaktli through the connection to water. For Earth, I have done the walking barefoot thing. I have gotten more into gardening. I have gotten more into taking care of what small garden space that I have available to me, even though it's hot as fuck in Texas, and so it's exhausting to be outside. Like I still go out there and I still connect to the nature that I have, and you know I have a couple of um, herbs that I grow. Specifically, I have like basil and rosemary. And, you know, I see it. I see how it reacts to my involvement in its development. You know, like if I don't prune my basil, it will grow flowers and it will stop producing leaves. And so I have to constantly be picking the flowers. Sometimes I save them and I give them as offerings. Sometimes I use them for teas, but that allows the plant to grow more leaves. And those leaves I then use to feed my family. Like I make tomato sauces and I add my herbs into them. And the rosemary is really good for you when you have some kind of stress or like anxiety. Just drinking a rosemary tea has really helped me in relaxing. um, for wind, you know, like I said, I live in the city. I don't have a lot of space to just think about like nature. Like there's cars constantly, like there's helicopters, you know. It's walking outside to experience just the wind is was so foreign to me. Um and so now I become conscious of it. You know, I feel the wind hit my face, hit my body, and I tell, you know, I tell my son, I tell him, vamos a decirle gracias a Eka. Thank you for being here. Thank you for existing, because without you we would not have this fresh air. Without you, the plants outside, you know that wind does that to plants. It makes them harden, it makes them stronger. That's why trees get stronger, because the wind blows them, and then they have to harden so that they don't, you know, fall over. And so it's just about being more, at least for me, it's just more consciously aware of the elements in my colonized life, you know. And as for fire and sun gazing is hard for me, you know, like in the city in Houston, it's all flat. You can't really look at the sun while it's setting. Um, but I have gotten into like, you know, burning a fire, watching the fire, talking to the fire. Um, and I do actually have an image that I wanted to share. And I don't know if y'all can see that, but this is like the first fire that I burned with my family. And there's a crocodile right there in the image that I know you get. Can you guys see that? Can I get some confirmation? And so yeah, I just wanted to share that. I definitely feel connected to Zipaktli in my daily life now. Um yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much. Oh, and can I take a second to answer the question that Cyrus posed in the chat? It says, teach yourself well. Can you talk about this more? Does it mean to teach or discipline our ego? We'll go more into detail about the ego during the second sign, but basically, yes, it's about teaching yourself, like our teacher likes to say it repeatedly, that nobody gives out grades in this class, nobody gives out grades in real life, like nobody is keeping track if you did your homework or not. You're the only one that's responsible, you're the only one that has the consciousness to check yourself and to teach yourself and to actively discipline yourself. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Nanitsin Pilar. Nanitsin Tekpat and Brother Nemor, would you like to add to that, please? Your mic is off if you're trying to share.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, so yeah, to first discuss the four elements, right, and just some personal experience connecting with them, right? We all have different experiences, right? But I think the lessons are still the same within them. So for water, for example, ever since a young age, I've always been drawn to water. I was a very big swimmer when I was young. I loved to be in the water. You could never get me out of it. I would spend all day out there just in water. And it's something that I didn't really put much importance to. I didn't understand really why until obviously I connected with some of you guys, our siblings, right, in the Kakpuli and within our TikToks and things like that, further discussing the material. And so now I understand, right, why I was so drawn to it. And whenever it does rain here, because we live in a desert, so it's not very often, but when it does, I just always love the smell of rain and just watching it happen right before you. That's just something that I've grown more appreciative of as the days have passed. I have more appreciation for it. Fire, I love to watch smoke. Like when something's burning, I like to watch the flames of the fire moving. I find it very soothing. I find it very hypnotic, I guess, in some ways, right? Very tranquil. And so to me, I like looking at fire. I like seeing the way it moves and dances in a way, right? It has its special movements. And so with earth, when I feel like I lack balance or, there's something bothering me, I just don't feel very well, right? Internally or spiritually. When I can, I like to be barefoot, right? I like to go outside in the dirt by this tree that we have in our backyard. And I like to just stand there and I can actually feel the vibrations of, the connection to Mother Earth, right? I can feel the life within Earth, right? The ground. I like touching trees. Like I just like that connection with plants and knowing that life is in all different forms and shapes, right? And to just have that appreciation of acknowledging them, but also connecting with them. It's been something very profound and very impactful in my daily. And then wind, I've always liked to talk to wind. I never knew why until now, but I actually talk out loud and I speak to wind, and it reciprocates in a way, right? It gets stronger. It's by acknowledging, by calling it by its name, which is Erkat, right? The sacred energy of wind. I speak to it and you can actually get a response. It's like it's communicating in its own shape and form, right? So I do get responses. I have the wind blowing stronger, or the temperature of the wind changes, right? Like, so there are messages within the elements. I think we just have to learn how to communicate and how to connect, and that just takes time. It takes practice and doing some of these exercises to not only learn yourself more, like learn who you are, but also to strengthen those connections, right, with nature. And we are all part of that sacred energy that lives on this plane of existence, right? We just need to know how to strengthen those bonds and connections. And then I also wrote, like in the notes, some other exercises with Zipaktli that you can do if you're asking or questioning, how do I get started, right? One very important exercise that you can start to do, right, is look at yourself in the look at your reflection in the mirror, but don't say anything. You know, don't start to critique or judge yourself. You know, just look at your reflection, and it's gonna take time, right? It's gonna take repetition, because in the beginning, for a lot of us, we didn't like what we saw. I think personally, I can speak that I used to avoid my reflection. I would go to the bathroom and I wouldn't look in the mirror, right? Because there was a point in my life where I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like the way I was feeling or acting, right? All side effects of living in this world and being very disconnected. But then I got introduced to the Tonalpohualli, right? Temachtilistli shared with us some exercises, and from that point on, I made it a like pertinent task on my daily to do that every single day. And with time, it changed, right? It got easier to look at myself, and eventually I started to embrace who I was, right? I started to love, you know, hug myself and tell myself that, you know, I am great. I do, you know, I have a lot of good qualities, where it was being kind of buried underneath all the negativity that we like to judge ourselves for, or, you know, punish ourselves for. And so that's an exercise that's really dear to me. I think it works as long as you stay with it and you don't get discouraged, right? Because it is a process. A lot of these things take time, and we have to be able to just be willing to give that time and patience, right, for it. And then it's very important to connect with our surroundings. And I know we don't all have the ability to maybe have, you know, this grand nature outside, right, or something to go to, right? But it's up to us, right, to find those places. And it's going to take time. It's going to take maybe exploration, but we will stumble upon our space that's important to us. And Nemo actually shared today in our group with our Temachtilistli, right, of there's a place in the mountains that's really meaningful for us. It's something that resonates really deeply in our hearts, and it's a space that we can go and we can just unwind. We can disconnect from the stressors of life, and we can just go and focus on being in the here and now, right? The first topic that we discussed with the Ashkan Wanikan, right? The being present, you know, not being so consumed by the stressors of life, but just appreciating having another day, right? Another day of life, waking up this morning and being able to be here. Those things that a lot of us kind of bypass because we're made to be stressed out all the time and focus and get distracted on other things, right? So it's important to take that step back and, you know, form those connections, right? So those are my experiences with some of these exercises. If you have questions, please, we encourage them. But I'm gonna pass the mic now, metaphorically, to Nemo, so he can give his input.
That's okay, Mati. Thank you very much, honorable little sibling. So let's talk about the four elements. What is it that they all have in common when we are referencing these four elements? Right? Deconstruction. It's a very weird word to use when we're talking about four elements, but think about it. If you put dirt in water, does it dissolve and get separated into its components? The salt dissolves in water, the sugar dissolves in water. Of course. Can you put plants in water, and when they put a fire to it, boil that water, does the water not decompose that plant and provide you with the drink? Yes, it does. Fire. You were to break down parts of a tree that have fallen, make those parts smaller and create a fire for you to cook your food, right? That wood is now turning into what? Ash, deconstructing. Earth, if you were to just walk around nature, walk around the forest, walk around the desert, walk around the city, you see animals that are no longer alive, corpses, right? Decomposing, returning those minerals, those atoms back to its purpose, its intended use, to replenish, right? The wind does the same thing. It actually provides us a visualization. Why? Because when you see sandstorms, I've seen them in Iraq and Afghanistan. When you see sandstorms, it's just a shifting of dirt from one place to another. When you feel heavy winds in your cities, is it not cleaning up certain spaces? Is it not removing certain things from areas where maybe Mother Earth just doesn't want it to be there? More than likely, deconstructing. So essentially, the four elements is teaching us about the deconstructing, and that's exactly a lesson that we must take. We must deconstruct ourselves. We were raised to exist a certain way. We were raised to believe that we have all this knowledge and all this power. Yes, but what is it for? What is its intended purpose? Is it truly to get revenge? Is it truly to get yourself in a better situation? Or was it meant so that you can understand that it's not about you, it's about all of us? And so we must take the time to actually put in some work. And what does that mean? Well, the question was, what do you mean exactly by teaching yourself and teaching yourself well? Here's an example. Look at something and observe it. How does that apply to your lifestyle? How does your feeling of an insect outside and you stepping on it affect you completely when that insect could have just remained alive and done its own thing? Can you not exist in harmony with certain insects? More than likely. Do you not want mosquitoes in your house? Yes. So why are you removing the little cobwebs from the corners of the household when you know they are trapping those insects and helping you get rid of them? It's about how we must learn to integrate with the current system, right? How can we essentially let go of the things that are not very important? Cleanliness was an aspect of our ancestors, but it doesn't mean that you have to be psychotic about it. Doesn't mean that you have to develop this obsessive compulsive disorder to just keep everything clean and organized. Why? Because you're not investing time in yourself, you're investing time and energy and focus into something that when you are gone and no longer exist on this world, is anybody else going to maintain that? Or is it just going to sit there and go to waste? So teaching yourself well is about getting yourself to challenge everything that you are believing and existing in. And in doing so, you start to listen to that little voice in your head. You start to pay attention to what it's saying. And teaching yourself well means there's going to be certain points where you're going to sit back and you're going to be like, look, dude, just calm down. This is not a place for you to give input. This is not a place for you to be around. You're making the situation worse. So, take a step back. It's getting in tune with your emotions, not reacting out of pure emotional, uncontrolled emotional standards that we are expected to, but rather sit down, be calm, be silent, and just observe what's happening around you and learn. Literally, you gain more out of using this practice than you will asking all the questions in the world. And so it's important for us to kind of understand what all that means, right? You're going to end up understanding that although your ego is not truly tangible, although the other you is not truly existent in a physical sense, it still talks to you. Although you don't listen to it, it talks to you. Although you don't, although you may not think about it, right? This other you loves you to a point where you don't even understand. And so you must learn to harmonize with that. You must learn to harmonize with everything about that. People call it flaws. People call it sin. People call it the little devil that is opposite to the little angel, whatever, right? It's the other you. It's you literally in the realm of Mitlapa. The best way for me to put it for you. And a mirror is known as a portal, right? A mirror is known as a portal. So as that portal, you can see the other you, and eventually you're going to come to a point where you're going to be able to live in harmony. You're going to navigate the world, and your ego is going to be working with you to accomplish the goals that you're trying to attain, and not against you, right? You are the one that guides it, not it guides you.
And so, if it's all right with everybody, I think before we wrap up and kind of do some questions or answer some questions, get some feedback on any areas that need clarification. There were 5 words in Nahuatl, which we'll share here, right? And we'll share like how to spell it and what it means, right? But I think it's a good way to summarize the exercise of observe, be silent, and learn. So yeah, I mean, there's 5 phrases.
Shimokaki.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and write it. So but yes, if you want to, while I'm typing, you can talk about it.
Shimokaki, those are the words, right? So shimokaki, it means to listen to yourself. Shimomanoli, defend yourself. There you are.
Yeah, there you go.
Shimoyakita, observe or look at yourself. Shimonenemiwan means to examine yourself. Or walk yourself, like guide yourself or direct yourself, as they have it, as Pilar has it up here in PowerPoint, right? Means to guide yourself. Shimuyakmachti means to learn from yourself and teach yourself. These 5 words are they're not just words, right? They are essentially um, a plegaria, which is Spanish for prayer, equivalent to a prayer. But this prayer is to yourself, right? These are words, or essentially these are commands for yourself to actually practice when you are learning and existing in the here now, right? Ashkan Wanikan. Hear yourself, defend yourself, observe yourself, direct yourself, teach and learn from yourself. These these five phrases, technically phrases, this is literally a whole prayer if you want to look at it that way. Is direct it for yourself so that you can help yourself, one, silence that voice in your head that cannot help you focus, and two, become self-aware, which is the two critical things that you need to be able to begin your journey of reclamation, of understanding the path of the ancestors. I don't know, Brother Tlamini, would you like to add some more to what I was saying?
Yeah, let me touch on that a little bit because I think that we're touching on this, but there's a lot of information behind it that we haven't explained yet. So let me try and explain it a little bit. What are we learning right now, and what are a lot of these exercises? A lot of these exercises that we're basically sharing right now is essentially or has a lot to do with the way of life uh, the uh, the ancestors used to have for multiple different purposes in life, whether it was food they were eating, their culture, their customs, their traditions, uh, their spirituality. A lot of this is touching on that, on the spirituality aspect. Our ancestors believed that we were sacred knowledge. We are sacred, I'm sorry, sacred energy. We are sacred energy. Uh, we are basically gods. They thought of us ourselves as gods, if you want to call it that, if the translation allows. I don't think they believe in gods. It was energies, really. So when we're talking about energies, everything is energy. The fire is one of the oldest energies we withheld. The sun is life. Without it, we would die, right, Donatu? So we have essentially uh, all of the knowledge related to how the ancestors used to view our cosmology, right? Now, these exercises that we're sharing have to do a lot with energy, right? Being able to connect to the energy of the sun, the air, the fire, the earth, being able to connect with your own energy. So, what happens when you look at a mirror for a few minutes? Um, Essentially the way that you do this exercise, or the way that I started doing it, was I would look up. I have an obsidian mirror, so I started doing it on that, and then I switched over to the mirror in my bathroom, which works the same way. But essentially you start looking at that mirror, and eventually you will see that your face changes, and you will see you will start seeing multiple different things that don't look so beautiful, things that look what you might think of as monsters, uh, evil beings, whatever, right? You can see, if you're a male, you can see a female in multiple different forms. So things like that happen, right? What are you seeing? You're seeing yourself, you're seeing your higher self. Some people might call it your guardian angel. Uh, our ancestors called it the Nahual, okay? It's basically Nahualismo. The Red Road, Toltecayot, is basically the same knowledge. Is the sacred knowledge that the ancestors used to hold. So when you are looking at a mirror, essentially what you're doing is you're looking at your higher self, if you want to look at it that way. Our ancestors called it or had a word for it, which was Nahualism, Anawal. Uh, and essentially, what you're trying to achieve is you're trying to achieve peace with this other self of yours, basically to make sure that he starts working with you on making sure that you have the life that you want to achieve. Is essentially who guides you, is essentially who you like to observe to. That's essentially who's all the time talking to you. You hardly ever pay attention to it, and that's the reason why he's always trying to trip you up. But essentially, you got to make peace with your own energy. At the end of the day, that's what we are. We are energy, and energy is eternal. And the body that we hold is temporary. Eventually, we're gonna leave it, but we will continue to be energies. That's essentially the cosmology that our uh, elders held when it came to that. Uh, the reason, another couple of things that I wanted to touch on was a couple of things that the Temachtilli touches on with this exercise, and that is there's energy all around us. Around us, we can learn how to feel it, right? It's just like fear. You know, you can feel fear, but you cannot really see it, right? There are certain things that you can feel, but you cannot see them. It's the same concept with energy, right? Uh, so as we go along, we will start discussing more about energies and the different things that can be achieved through these exercises, which is a lot of different things. But we do have to essentially make sure that we take control over our higher self, make peace with them or with their or with it, whatever you may want to call it. But essentially allow him to help us achieve the goals that we want to achieve because it's basically in the interest of both, right? So that's the way that I looked at it. Another thing I wanted to say about Zipaktli in the cosmological view of our ancestors, Zipaktli also represented knowledge. And essentially, in the cosmological view, the older you were, the more wisdom you were supposed to have, because that's essentially what drove our ancestors. It was knowledge. They would try to learn as much as they could and be able to leave some of that knowledge for the next generation. That's the reason why they accumulated so much information. Um, I've started studying with my Temachtilli for about a year now, but I've been learning as much as I can about the traditions, cultures, multiple different cultures of the land of what we know of, as Mexico. Uh, so I think that there is a lot of knowledge that we're gonna be able to share as part of the class. Go ahead, Noitnitzin Pilar, if you need to add anything else.
Happy, yeah. Um, uh, for this particular prayer, I believe I had it. Yeah, I had it under the second sign because it was a way to analyze ourselves and our ego, and so I think that for now I'm good with what we had to say, what you guys shared. Um, and once we go over what the second sign is and all that it entails, I can go more into details as far as like my point of view for the prayer. Um, I am gonna put him to sleep right now, so I appreciate the chance to share, but I don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to add, Noitnitzin Tepat or Noitnitzin Nemo?
I wanted to ask a question that was possible.
Please go ahead.
Okay, buenas noches. Usted es el Temachtiani Jaime Pérez.
Yo soy Atlani, Chicueye Coscacuautli, Mancho.
Oh, mucho gusto, Javier, mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto, Javier.
Es que, mucho gusto. Yo tengo un amigo muy estimado y también es un Temachtiani. Él es del estado original de Morelos. Se retiró en Guadalajara. Y digo, wow, digo, yo pensé que era usted, pero mucho gusto, hermano. Sebastiani, pero quería hacer la pregunta. So basically, English, Spanish, I could do both. I mean, I just wanted to ask the question just to clarify. Basically, what you guys are discussing, I don't know the word for it, but I was gonna say maybe, I don't know if you guys, if possible, maybe have like a PDF to kind of like a review summary over the topics, over the discussion of today's class. Basically that's what I was asking for, como un resumen, algo como breve, como de la plática en el día de hoy, porque no estaba muy claro exactamente del tema, ¿verdad? Porque he escuchado varias pláticas que han tenido en TikTok y siempre se me hace muy interesante todos estos temas, pero nomás quería clarificar y básicamente poquito lo que entendí es que se están basando sobre la sabiduría, the wisdom of if I'm not mistaken, the 20 days, or the 20-day signs, like the different energies and aspects attributed to the 20-day signs of that's in the Tonal Macho, or the Tonal Lama, or the different 20-day signs, if I'm not mistaken, Um, but I do find it really interesting too because como mencionó sobre el espejo el espejo de Oceana, so eso es definitivamente uno que me llama siempre me llama mucho el interés, y no saber cómo utilizarlo, manejarlo, pero sobre todo pues doy muchas gracias de que me hayan invitado. Es un honor estar aquí. Se aprecia. Muchísimas gracias por su tiempo, a usted y hermano Nemo y Tecpac y Pilar y todos los que están aquí que me han invitado. Muchísimas gracias y es todo lo que quería preguntar. Gracias, Kamasi.
Thank you for your question, brother Javier, hermano Javier, Noinitzin Javier. So the question was, what type of teachings we're going to be sharing as far as the classes, as I understood it, and also maybe a little bit more into the obsidian mirror. So let me go ahead and address first the question. It is basically the Tonal Lamat. It has a lot of those teachings. It is basically the 20-day different count, the Tonalpohualli. Is teaching the energies, is teaching the spirituality behind it. It's actually something that took me years to find. And it's something that I'm doing as a tekyo to our carpuli, something that I feel that brings a lot of knowledge from real knowledge from ancient Mexico and the cultures, not just one, but multiple different cultures, into more accessible places for people to be able to get it from. Not a lot of this information is really known outside of maybe central Mexico, and not by a lot of people anymore. It is basically something that where you have to be interested about to be able to learn it, but you do find it throughout the continent. And when you start putting the pieces together, you find that it has a lot of similarities also with other continents in multiple different aspects. So one of the reasons why I started sharing a lot of time with Noinitzin Nemo and Noinitzin Tekpat and some of the other siblings here is because we were talking about decolonization, and this is it. I mean, it doesn't get any more eye-opening than the actual information that was hidden from us. And that's basically what this is. As part of the information that we're going to be covering, we're basically going to be covering things from history to cosmological views and different aspects. So there's going to be a lot of information related to that. As far as the mirror is extremely interesting because it's found in multiple different cultures, or a lot of different cultures used it. The other day, we were looking to see if there was an Temachtilistli written that contained the mirror, Noinitzin Pilar and I. And I did a quick search, and I tried to find any information I could on it, and I couldn't find anything from the Temachtilist in our end, but I was able to find basically some information on it on Egyptian hieroglyphics. So there's a lot of similarities. The mirror is something that was used throughout multiple different cultures. And what it is essentially a portal. It's something that allows for you to be able to connect to a different consciousness, if you want to call it that, when done properly. I think it's an exercise that should be known by a lot of people. And the fact that not a lot of people know how to do it goes to show that is something that has been kept hidden for a particular reason. So I'm glad that we get to talk about it now. Thanks for asking, Javier. Anybody wants to add anything to that?
Muchísimas gracias. Gracias, maestro.
Just share your email on the chat, please. That way you can get access to the notes, since you were asking for kind of like a summary. That's all I wanted to add.
But yeah, we are writing down notes. So yeah, if you can just relay your email. But also, I just wanted to add, ask your questions. Right, this is the time right now where we're moving into the segment of ask questions. If you need clarification on any of the topics that were discussed, feel free. You don't need to be shy, right? Just Nemo, you want to say the nice phrase that sits well with you, that you try to that we only don't know because of lack of confidence of asking?
Oh, from your grandfather?
Yeah.
No sabes por falta de confianza. You don't know for lack of confidence, meaning that be confident to ask questions and they will be answered.
So if you want to unmute your mic, you're welcome to speak right into the space, or if you feel at this time more comfortable, relay the question or comment in the chat and we'll address it. But that's kind of what we're doing at this point, right? Is answering questions, clarification.
I wanted to ask I just wanted to comment to the Temachtiani that I took a course on how to use the mirror, the espejo de océano, but I felt like there wasn't any support. I had some really strange experiences, and because I was using it for healing purposes, right? And the brother that was teaching it, he's from Tenochtitlan, but it was a recorded class, so you know, I'm just saying this because we were talking about the obsidian mirror, of course, right? Pero como que no había apoyo, no había where you can have a discussion like, what did you experience? What did you observe? What happened? And I had some very interesting experiences, and I just said, you know what? Maybe it's time for me just to put it away. And I still have the Descat and the Espejo de Obsidiana, but I decided to put it away for the moment. I said, you know what? Maybe it's not the right time because I don't have the right teacher to guide me how to use this stuff for healing purposes. But it was real interesting, you know. There was a lot of different movement, eye coordinations, like breath work, and you know, and it was honestly, it was a very long process. It would be something that I would prefer to do like on a Sunday because era una meditación muy extremadamente larga. You know, so anyway, I just wanted to add that, and I appreciate. Muchas gracias, you know, gracias por su tiempo todos. You know, I'll shut up so everybody else can get a chance to speak.
Nah, thank you for your comment. So the obsidian mirror, yeah, you will see some strange stuff when doing that exercise, and that's essentially who you are. It's basically a reflection of us, and it is basically it's our self, our ego, our higher self, our Nahual, essentially talking to us and trying to mess with us in a lot of different ways. We haven't made peace with it yet. So eventually it'll start easing on you, and you'll find that your mind becomes extremely calm and things start working out and flowing for you way better. Uh, the the mirror exercise is extremely powerful. One thing that you do not want to do is you don't want to be doing that exercise between 12 and around 4 o'clock in the morning. Uh, we're talking energies. We are energy. And unfortunately, there is dense energies that do happen in between 12 and around 4 o'clock in the morning. So that's one thing that you obviously don't want to do. But it's an amazing exercise. I think it's done wonders for me. I've seen a lot of different things. I come from a Catholic background, so I was taught that things like that were extremely bad. So I had to overcome multiple different barriers to be able to do a lot of these exercises myself, which I did. And once I did, he empowered me and he allowed for me to actually start growing properly in multiple different ways. Uh, Obviously, when we talk about also connecting with nature, when it comes to sun gazing, obviously you don't want to do that in the middle of the day. It's gonna destroy your eyes. You want to be responsible and also use the right time to be able to do these exercises. Um, and uh, Hopefully you can try to do sun gazing with your obsidian mirror. I use mine to do that, and it looks really cool. I try to do that once a week or so. Thank you for your question or your comment there, Noinitzen. Anybody else that has some questions there?
There's a question in the chat.
Go ahead and answer that if you like, Nemo.
Come on, man, you're gonna put me on the spotlight. Just kidding. All right, so yes, the other you loves you, whether you know it or not, right? Because it's there with you from the beginning when you first take your breath, and it's there with you until the end, until you take your last breath, right? It's there with you in moments that you're not happy. It's there with you in moments where you are disgusted with yourself. But even then, it still tells you that you are, or you matter, or you have an importance to this world. And some of the things that you can do to change that Eurocentric perspective about the quote unquote ego being bad is stop calling it ego, call it the other you, because it is you in its dual sense, right? Listen to it. I've learned to listen to my ego before I started taking the the courses of the ancestral teachings. How did I do that? Well, I started using my ego. I'm a very loud person. You may not hear it and perceive it when I'm talking to you on TikTok because I'm calm, right? But I'm a loud motherfucker. And what I mean by that is when people start talking over the voices of those who are calm and silent and don't let them speak, I stand up, I tell everybody, shut the fuck up, right? And listen to what the person over here was trying to tell you. That's literally using my ego for the benefit of the community, right? For the benefit of everybody listening to the voice that's not being heard. Or I stand up for the people that get bullied. I did it in middle school, I did it in high school, I did it in the Marine Corps, I did it in corporation at Microsoft where I used to work at. I always stood up for the people. And how did I do that? Well, I know how bullies work. I know that bullies like to intimidate, use fear, and I use those same tactics on the bullies. Right? I intimidate them. How do I intimidate a bully? Well, that's a conversation to have another time, but I put them on spot. I make them feel as they want to feel all the attention. They want to feel like they are superior in a sense. And so I give them exactly that. But it gets to a point where things get so awkward for them that they will cower and back down because they don't know what they're asking for. And so those are some of the things that I do to bring to light that the quote unquote ego, the other you, is essentially something that you must live with rather than work against. And when you work against yourself, it's part of that Eurocentric ideal from the Roman times, right? The Julius Caesar stated himself, and the House of Caesars stated themselves that in order to conquer, you must divide. That's why the statement goes divide and conquer. So you divide the individual self, and what do you end up doing? You create a disbalance, a disconnect, and you end up not existing in a healthy manner. And so what do? You judge yourself. You put too much weight on yourself. You put too much judgment, too much unnecessary stress about how you should be presenting yourself to society, how you should be behaving in society, how you should be in general, just how you should be, right? So living with yourself and becoming one with reframing that mindset is to don't give a damn what people think about you. Yes, there are social norms that exist, but what do they exist for? For no good reason. Doesn't bring you any healthy benefits, doesn't bring you anything, right? You're going out spending money when you should be saving it, or you're going out and drinking when you should be, you know, taking time to become one with yourself. And so we can't do we first and foremost the exercises that we shared today, right, are the initial steps of reframing that mindset, that framework of the other you is bad. Don't listen to it. That's the devil trying to get you to do bad things. And on the contrary, you are a human being. You cannot have experience if you don't go and experience things. Okay. So go and experience things. Would you like to add some more?
Sure, I'll give my take because you did ask for everybody's thoughts about it. Just wanted to allow Noah to share his perspective. So one of the big things, the disclaimers, right, that we spoke about in the beginning of the class and that we kind of made everybody aware of is you need to come in with an open mind and you need to come wanting, right, wanting to learn and essentially challenge a lot of things that you thought were your truths up until a certain point, right? It's important to just at this moment, right, little by little, take the information. It might be overwhelming. It might be overstimulating at certain points, right? But that's why we encourage ask us for elaborations, ask us to clarify things, ask us, questions like the ones in the comments, right? Of, can you elaborate a little bit more? Can you give me your perspective? But essentially what we're doing here is we're decolonizing, right? We are changing what we used to know, and we are substituting it now with different information, right? And it's going to look differently for everybody. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that I can give in my perspective is, for so long, our culture, our people, our history, the way we think, just everything about this universe, that indigeneity holds true and holds sacred, is demonized. So it's no different that they then demonize people, right? They tell you and diminish your worth so that you can remain essentially a puppet, right, in their game that they play, in their agenda that they're trying to fulfill. They don't want empowered, powerful people walking around, feeling their worth and knowing their connections, and attaining this information, right? Because you can't break that down. You can't divide that, because once you're whole, once you do harmonize with your other self, it changes you. It changes you internally, and it also changes how you react and perceive the world around you, right? And so just remind yourself that a lot of this knowledge, a lot of these teachings are demonized. They are meant to be given that negative attention, because they don't want people diving into this material. They don't want people coming across it. So what do they tell you? You're going to go to that bad place that they've already labeled. You're going to go to that bad place because of your sins, because you're asking too much questions and you're trying to know too much, and that's literally just a distraction. It's a way to keep you limited, right, for you to remain enslaved in this world. And so practice, start implementing some of these practices that we've discussed. See how you feel about it, right? See how, just observe yourself, what how it makes you feel, what you're experiencing, right? But essentially we have a lot of unlearning to do, and that includes unlearning a lot of the things and the biases that were given to us, such as the ego is your enemy, don't befriend it. You always have to be in this constant battle with your ego. None of that is true. We were actually meant to harmonize and to instill balance within ourselves. And the only reason that at times we might feel like our ego is a little out of control, or it dictates a lot of our situations, is because we haven't guided it, we haven't taught it and disciplined it enough for us to take back control, right? We'll get into the other lessons about how we are strong and powerful ourselves, and we have a lot of strength and direction and guidance to provide ourselves, right? And by doing those things, you essentially change your outlook on life. You change the way you view things. You change how you feel. You heal yourself, and you start to feel healthier. And that's very important when our culture expresses how important our surroundings are, our connections to this world and nature are. Our body is not just a vessel, right? I mean, yes, it is what we are. It is what makes our existence at this point in time, right? But we must nurture it and care for it, and that requires physically, providing the things that we need, like nutrients, proper diets, healthy things like that. But it also means enriching your mind, right? Teaching, continuously learning, embracing and teaching your spiritual side, how to further connect with that, right? So there's a lot of things that come into play. And so that's just my perspective, right, on how to befriend your ego and how to one day achieve the goal of hugging yourself and truly loving who you are, the good and the bad. And I don't like using the good and bad because those are not the proper terms to use. There's, it's all in just duality, right? There's two sides to everything. So that's Dekbat's view.
Yeah, and in terms of good and bad, that's a concept that didn't even exist.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's just duality.
Yeah.
So
So good and bad is not really the bad things that are done. I mean, they are done because why? There has to be an existence of quote unquote bad, right? But anyways.
But yes, other siblings, if you guys, please provide your perspective.
Sister Pilar would
So
like
let me share a little bit on this topic, if you guys don't mind. As far as the ego goes, the ego is needed. I spent a long time trying to destroy my ego, and then I came to learn from our teacher that essentially the ego is needed. It's part of us. We cannot destroy it. It's ourself. It's that voice that talks to us. It's that person that you gotta make peace with. Um, it's not a bad thing. It's actually an amazing thing. And when it becomes your friend and you make peace with it, you start living a way better life, and you start doing things that you couldn't think were possible. Uh, when the conquistadors came to Anawak, essentially they asked where people uh, went after they passed away, right? And the answer was Mictlampa. So in the translation, the actual meaning of the word was mist. Mictlampa refers to, is basically the north. It refers to the north, but it also refers to the place where our ancestors go after, life. Uh, this is Mictlampa, and this is also a place where we can essentially visit. So when you hear us say, see you in Mictlampa, that really means we'll see you in our dreams. Our ancestors knew that our um, high self uh, essentially was the person that was in charge during our dreams. And that's something that we will also touch on. But there's a lot of information that kind of links in between all of these different information that ties into the entire cosmological view, and a lot of the information that was kind of twisted and that is still driven by a lot of mainstream people. That kind of misleads the information as far as the ancient knowledge, but the knowledge is still alive and is there, and we're going to be sharing as much as we can. No need, Pilar, go ahead.
So the original question was, how did you, I've always been taught that the ego is bad. How did you learn to reframe that mindset towards the ego? So I feel like I relearned it. I learned it a lot when I learned about the second sign. And I know that we haven't really touched on it much, but I have, I have the slide ready and I have it here. And so this is the phrase that is attached to the second sign, which is the wind. And it says, Moyao Tonal tiecanas tehua ipanpan tiweiyitok mamiskaki amotikakis tewatsin. And so it basically translates to your ego or your enemy. You will guide him because you are powerful. He will listen to you, you will not listen to him. And something that our teacher says a lot is that he is our friend, like he might not know what's best. And I mean, he definitely doesn't know what's best. He drives on instinct and on feelings and reactivity. And so you need to befriend that. You need to befriend it, and you need to but basically I talk to myself, you know, I talk to myself and I tell myself like, yeah, I get it. I know where you're coming from and I hear you, but that's not what the right reaction would be right now. Like, what are you really doing by doing what you want me to do, you know? And something that our teacher has also told us is that when you have these like moments of silence, like for example, like if you're in your car and you're driving a long distance by yourself, you have this like urge to listen to music, to fill the silence with noise, and it's your ego trying to um pull up a distraction, pull up something to basically distract you from this opportunity to have this kind of like internal conversation with you and your ego, you know? And so something, you know, that I learned, you know, is that when you practice the silence from lesson 1, which is Jigdachia Moshinawati Wan Shimo Yekmachtia, is you dominate the ego because you are telling him or you're telling them, you know, that I need you, you know, I need you to listen to me. I'm the one that's in control. Like, you do not control what I say. So I know you want to judge. I know you want to distract yourself. I know you want to judge. I know you don't want to learn and you don't want to grow, but we're going to do this together because we're friends, you know? And yeah, so like I wrote in my notes, it says sounds help us stay distracted. So we need to be conscious to connect and dominate our ego. Um, and like Tekpat said, you know, looking in the mirror and not judging yourself, just reflecting and saying nothing and not judging yourself. They're all ways that you can better communicate with yourself and better have this understanding of who you really are. And so you have to take the moments alone and in silence, and you have to fight the urge to fill it with noise so that you can better connect to yourself, connect to your ego. And you know, it ties into the the phrases that we were talking about earlier, the shimokaki, manowi, shimoyekita, shimonenemi, shimoyekmachtia. You know, like you want to hear yourself. You know, you don't understand yourself. You don't understand yourself because you don't understand your ego because you are distracting yourself. You are hearing things. You are reacting to things. And so to better hear yourself, to better understand your ego, you have to be in that silence. Um, another notes. So yeah, that ties back to how the wind is the second sign, right? Because first there's us, first there's creation, first there is the body that embodies us, and then second is our shadow self, our ego, our duality, I guess. I don't know about that one, but it's the second thing that is that comes after creation. You know, our ego is not us. You know, it's a part of us. It's a friend, it's a shadow, but it's not who should be in control. They should not be taking the wheel, telling you to react, um to affect negatively, to project negatively onto your situations and to you other people and to your environment, you know? And so yeah, when I look at this prayer, the Shimokaki, you know, hear yourself, hear what your ego wants, hear what you really want. You know, defend yourself, defend what you believe in, defend in you know, I believe from, you know, me myself, I believe that I am here to spread love. I believe that I am here to um give this life a better um to give flowers, you know, to better the experience of my own and those around me. And Shimoyekita is to look and observe yourself. I know that I have faults. I know that there are things that I perpetuate unconsciously because of the society that I was raised in. I know that I carry, you know, white supremacist characteristics that I have to fucking deconstruct. I know that I carry racism that I have to deconstruct. I know that I have to look at myself and um, evaluate, you know, what I really am and what I'm perpetuating, the way that I am presenting myself in the here and now, you know. And Shimonenemi, you know, direct yourself. That's me, you know, better making use of my time. You know, time is a construct, but you know, we only have such limited amounts of it. And so for me personally, you know, that looks like ending my consumption. You know, I don't consume media that doesn't align with my education. And I don't um you know, watch movies. I don't watch TV shows the way that I used to before, because I feel like that time is better served learning and bettering myself and my environment for those around me. And Shimoyekmachtia is learn slash teach yourself, you know, which is what we were talking about earlier, where it's like you know, nobody gives grades in life. Nobody's going to tell you, you know, hey, you didn't do your homework, or hey, you're slacking in this class. Like, no, you have to be the one that is responsible for yourself and responsible for how you have um, perpetuated, you know, your existence, how you you know, change is supposed to be normal. Change is good. Like, and we want to change in a positive way. We want to change in a way that gives flowers, in a way that we grow with art and yeah, um that is how I reframed the mindset that is my ego, right? It's just befriending this part of me that that wasn't accepted, you know, in my actual life. And it's been great. Thank you.
Any other questions that anybody might have there?
So real quick, sorry, uh, I'm trying to gather my thoughts. I'm getting really, really sleepy. So one thing I noticed, I think a lot of the teachings are, the ways that our people practiced. I think it was, um, passed down to us. I believe that our cells have memories. Um, Genetically we've got memory, and the practices, because it was their lively, the way they lived and thrived, and so it was, I feel like it was imprinted. The practices were imprinted because it was of their survival that they were able to pass down the practices without us knowing about it, such as the being present in the here and now and observing. There have been times before, I like all this to me, I feel like makes so much more sense now, than it did when I was actually doing it, because I thought I was doing things that no one's ever done before. No one talked about it. No one that I knew did these things. I don't, and to this day I can't explain why I did the things that I did. I have since stopped. I don't know why, other than I just got away from myself and got too busy with quote unquote life in general. But the things like the element issue. Tekbak had said something about there may be obstacles in the way of the water, but it still finds a way to flow through. And the way that I would observe or really concentrate and think about the elements, like the fire and the sun gazing, the favorite part of my day is right at sunset, the golden hour. Or when I haven't had water in a while, I notice its absence. I know that I feel dried out, not just thirsty, but my body feels dry. Or the way the tension when I would even be at a body of water like a lake or a pool or a tub as a kid. Even as a child, I would sit there and I could feel the tension on the surface of water and how my hand would gradually break it and how you actually have to put some force upon the surface to break that tension in the water. Or, when the wind, not just the sound of it or the direction it's blowing, but the subtle changes and the smells that it brings with it, and the subtle temperature changes. You feel the warm sun on your face, but yet you feel that cool breeze hit your skin as well. Kind of like when a cold front comes in, you can literally feel the difference in the pressure and the pressure and the temperature. So it's stuff like that that I've always been very observant about. And the smell of the earth, or I've always said that we are of the earth. We have minerals in our body. Our body's made up of at least 75% of the water. We have stardust particles that make up our body. So it's stuff like that that I've always known. I don't know where I've picked it up at, but and the only thing I can contribute it to is these are things that were gifted to us without us even knowing, and it awakens in some people, and they forget about it. I think we've forgotten our teachings and our survival and how we treated it. Yeah, when I used to concentrate on literally just being present in the now, it wasn't it was like, how do I feel physically? Like, how do my breaths feel? Do they feel even and rhythmic, or do they feel erratic and uh, disjointed? How does my heart rate feel? My pulse, everything. What did I smell? What did I see? What did I hear? It's stuff like that. I don't know where it came from. It's just stuff that was with me. Um, I have done without knowing, the gazing in a mirror, and I noticed that the longer I looked in the mirror, it was like I saw myself, but I didn't. It was like it was almost like I almost didn't recognize. It sounds so weird. It's like you see your face every day, but when you really look at it, it looks so different. If you really concentrate on it, it's like almost surreal, looking back into that mirror, into that reflection. And it's like, is that really me? Who is that? And it was a really weird sensation to see myself, but not see myself. So I don't know your thoughts on any of that.
Anyone wants to go first, or should I?
You can go ahead.
Okay, so what I would say about that is that all of us hold a lot of this information already. It's in our DNA. Uh, so a lot of the stuff that we do comes naturally to us, and it's stuff that, especially as little kids, we would do a lot without realizing that we kind of stop doing it eventually. And that's one of the great things about these teachings that we're gonna be going through, is that we're basically reconnecting to a lot of these things that we used to do or that we did without really a lot of guidance. And hopefully they're gonna be able to help us reconnect to what we are, and be able to find ourselves, because that's really what these things do. All of these different exercises and teachings uh, help you to realize that you're basically a warrior. You're a true being of energy, and you're capable of a lot of different things. And the only thing that has happened is that all of this information and knowledge has been kept from you. But the fact that you do a lot of these little things without even noticing, and most likely you're going to be doing a lot of the, or without really knowing, doing some of the exercises that we're going to be looking into. This is basically the first tonal. We still have 19 to go, and in addition to that, we have a lot of different energies to go to. So this is just barely scratching on a lot of the knowledge, but it's basically part of us. That's the reason why we do a lot of different things. I think Noinitzin Cyrus was sharing a picture the other day where she was by a tree, right? Just relaxing, enjoying it. That is basically part of one of the exercises that we're sharing today. Find a comfortable place and be able to connect to your surroundings, which is essentially what she was doing to a degree, right? So these are things that we already attempt to do. Is just doing them more aware and being more um, aware of the fact that these things do matter in our life. Um, no, anything, Pilar?
Yeah, I just want to say, going with what you said, Atlani, we hear a lot about epigenetics. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's basically this study that has popped up in like the study of people that are descendants of Holocaust survivors, chattel slavery survivors, and it's this DNA carries, the trauma, and even people that go to war, like their kids have PTSD, even though they didn't experience those traumas, and it's a great reminder to remember that it's not just the bad stuff that gets passed down in epigenetics. It's all the resilience that was in the people that basically led to us being alive right now. Like if they didn't know how to survive, if they weren't adaptable, then we wouldn't be here right now. And we carry all of that in our DNA equally as we carry our traumas. We carry the resilience of our ancestors, and we can use that to our advantage. We can use that DNA. We can use that like Bunny said, it's stuff that we do even as children. Like I have a kid, so like I can see how he interacts with the world and how he processes things, and I can see what it would be like, for me, untraumatized, un I was told a lot about like who I should be and who I needed to become, and I'm not doing that with my kids. So I can see what it's like, for a kid to not be told, right? To be something that he doesn't need to be. And yeah, I think that's it. Go ahead.
Tlasakamati Nakiwan siblings for your share. Thank you, Jeanette, right, for speaking up in the platform, right, and sharing your perspective, your experiences. Um, it's great to hear and be a part of this experience where you're sharing that you were doing things without even knowing, right? And it is cool. It is ingrained in our genetics. It's passed down through generations. Um, and so I don't know. It's really nice to hear your perspective on, and also Water Girl, right? Like we all do certain things. We might not at that moment know or dissect it enough to understand like why am I doing this? But through these teachings, through these lessons, we hope that you start to reflect more, right? Start to dissect who you are and to start embracing and loving all qualities that make you you, right? The good, well, I don't want to say the good and the bad, but just all qualities that make you whole, right? And yeah, I mean, it's well said by everybody that this information, this knowledge, it's resilient, it remains within our genetics and it's passed down. And we are who we are for a reason, right? It's we we experience some things in life, but we're still here. We are still trying to improve every day. We're still trying to learn and grow. And I think that isn't just random, right? What you put out into the universe, things are cyclical, so it comes back. So I think we're all here, right, for a purpose. We all have experiences and knowledge to share and to help one another out. But I just want to thank everybody who has been with us for our first class, right? Who's been here for, I think it's been almost 3 hours. But I hope you guys have appreciated the knowledge, the information. We really do appreciate the input, the questions, the experiences, perspectives. But yeah, I don't really have much to add. No.
I mean, technology nowadays uses sequences of data and storage and how that data gets transferred. People don't understand that all that was extrapolated from the indigenous knowledge, right? Indigenous existence in general. Modern science is about 180 years old versus indigenous science, which is hundreds of thousands of years. So we carry data in our genetic sequence. We carry data within our body fluids, right? I know the sperm has about 35 megabytes of data versus an egg cell from the female when they produce the eggs, they hold terabytes of data. And so the data is essentially another word for essence, if you want to call it that, right? Essence is exactly how we are able to transfer certain things. Just the same way you can transfer files from one computer to another using the USB, you could do the exact same thing transferring with genetics, right? Data is stored. Data can be translated as memories. It can be translated as experiences. It can be translated as a lot of things. And so that information had already existed within the construct of the savage society that existed here, as the Europeans call it. But it just goes to show that this information, you already know it. It's a simple term called forgetting that plays a role. Why? Because it's not something that we were exposed to as we would have been had there not been any invaders, right? And so it's kept from you. Why? Because they know how powerful we were. They know how we had this ability to overcome the Eurocentric abilities of humanism, and hence the term superhumans originated. The Germans found a very intriguing, they became very intrigued with that notion that they started studying it under science. They started trying to extract that and create superhumans themselves just with chemical chemical mixtures and modern day science. That had already existed in our part of the world before colonialism was even a concept. And so the superhuman, as they like to call it, is a term that we would naturally just refer to as being in harmony with yourself.
Nawal.
But Nawal would be sabio, like knowledgeable person.
Well, your higher being, your higher essence.
True.
That's what Brother Atlani has shared with us.
And this information, you all know this. If you have ties to this part of the world, you know this information. And this information calls to you. Why? Because this is in essence part of your roots, part of your ancestral teachings. And so in hearing this information, you are remembering because you were taught to exist an identity outside of what you are supposed to be. And so this is all just remembering. And so that's why we're holding these courses, is because everybody needs to remember who they are and where they came from. And from that point forward, we can then remember a lot more.
That and hopefully help to aid navigating through this world that we live in, right? To hopefully ease the navigation the more that you understand and grasp some of these concepts of why things are the way they are or why they flourish in the way they do.
I thought you wanted to add more to it.
Sorry. But yeah, no, like everybody said, right, we're just scratching the surface. This is just our first lesson. I really do hope you guys have enjoyed it. I know there's a lot to process, right? We highly encourage engagement, right? We have the WhatsApp group. If later down the road you're watching the recording, you're like, oh, I didn't think about this, or I need more clarification. This still doesn't make sense. Please ask your questions, comment. That's what we're here for. We're here to help, right? We're here to, help make it not so overwhelming or scary to go through, right? So please embrace the support that you have. I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor. We'll start with our Nokitsin Pilar. If you have any, things to kind of just summarize so that we can maybe have some rest, right? Get some rest and close out our first class. So floor is open.
I think the only thing that I have to say for the closing is that something that our teacher has also mentioned to us is that it's very good for us to keep track of our journey. And so keeping a journal, writing stuff down. So like today we had this first class, take some time, to write down feelings, to do a sketch, something that will remind you of this experience that you had so that you can remember, the journey while you're doing it. You back and think about this is what it was like. I remember what it was like for me first experience this, And so that can look like poetry, that can look like a sketch, that can look like a journal entry, whatever way you feel like expressing yourself. Because it's just going to be for you, it's just going to be a way for you to tell future you, how you felt about learning this stuff. I think that we should all do that today or whenever you want, it's just a recommendation. But thank you everybody for showing up, and I appreciate the opportunity to share and share space and hold space with you guys. Thank you very much.
Brother Atlani, do you have any?
Yeah, just one last thing, and I'll make it really quick. I know it's really late for a lot of people, including myself. I do exercises at night, so usually that takes me a couple of hours. So I'll be up late tonight. Nice. I enjoy being late at night sometimes. So the only thing that I wanted to touch on is one quote that our Temachtilistli shared, which translates to shower in the river of purity and knowledge. Is basically one of the things our ancestors would think of when they thought of Zipaktli. Is essentially, it goes to show the level of philosophy that they had. So I just wanted to say that because it caught my attention and it made me have some profound thoughts. So yeah, that's the only thing that I wanted to share. And thank you so much for everybody that spent so much time with us. We almost did 3 hours. That's I think that's the longest class. We might have to put a time limit next time. Thank you so much. Tlazo kamati miek, Nigwan.
Well, that summarizes it. We really appreciate all of you. We appreciate the input of all the people that spoke today. Eventually, those of you who are joining for the first time will complete your first year, and then it will fall onto you to replicate this and teach others, right? And so, first steps of all of this is to observe, remain in silence, and learn. So I hope that you all were able to extrapolate data that's very pertinent to your essence and um, ask the questions that need to be asked, right? That's what the WhatsApp is for. We have notes up and running. Get used to it so that way we can start keeping track of, just the general information that we need to share so people can kind of have an idea of what to expect when they are watching videos, and then don't feel bad to answer questions when they come up, because you are essentially now a learned individual on the first lesson of Zipaktli. And we really appreciate all of you for joining us. Timoitaske Mitlampa, Timoitaske Mosla. We'll see each other in the realm of dreams, and we'll see each other tomorrow.
Get some rest, everybody, and great lesson. It's great to share space with each one of you. So get the rest you need. Timoitaske Mitlampa, Timoitaske Mosla. We'll see each other in the realm of dreams, and we'll see each other tomorrow.
Timoitaske Mosla, Timoitaske Mistampa.